should point out that there are a lot of things happening, like right now in the 4 o'clock slot. We have awesome Android lifecycle stuff. If you're an Android developer, you should learn more about the lifecycle. That's a really good thing to go to. Data binding, I would like to know more about data binding. That's happening with Chris Davis over there. This looks really cool. You're analyzing images with Cloud Vision API. Like every word in there is like, ooh, cool. I have no idea what they're doing, but it sounds cool. This one, I have absolutely no idea what this is talking about. But there are a lot of words, so I'm sure that he's teaching a lot of stuff. And also he uses Z in rules, so it's probably really funny. On the other hand, out of all the stuff there is to learn, this is not the session in which you will learn anything. Just to be clear, I've had people come to my sessions where I really try to use titles that are as clear as possible that it's nonsense. And I've had people come up to me afterwards and go, so that wasn't serious. I was taking notes for like 5 minutes and then I realized you weren't serious. Really trying to fool you. Okay, so assuming you're here for the right reason, I'm going to turn my back for a second. If you want to leave and go learn something, please do. I'll start the talk. Costume. I'm really a prop comic. Me and Carrot Top, like this. I didn't trust myself to actually tie a tie in real time, so I had my mom do it before. All right, assuming people are here for the right reason or the wrong reason, I actually don't really care. Thank you for coming today to a technical presentation. In particular, thank you to the conference for allowing me to have the closing keynote. It doesn't actually say keynote on the schedule, but I'm sure that's what they meant. So some of the people think that this is sort of the appropriate way to present the topic, but I really like to think of it like this instead. I am, of course, Chet Haase. You can reach me in social media and find me online. I, of course, have a Google Plus account. You can also find me on Twitter. I also have a Medium account where I publish a bunch of articles. I have a personal blog where I write articles. I also have a technical blog where I write other personal articles. I do have an older Java.net account where I used to write articles, but I think they're lost there on that site. I do have a YouTube channel if you want to chase down some of the videos. What was the next one that came up here? I used to have my kids have told me apparently this is no more. So you can't really find me on MySpace anymore. You could find me up there, the personal site. I've been intending to set that up, so maybe eventually you'll be able to find me there. If you want to find me on Snapchat, I would suggest that you use exactly the right number of A's. I just kept adding them until it was finally a unique identifier. And I know from personal experience you really don't want to contact the people with fewer. I do have a Facebook account. If I don't know you and you want to friend me on that site, I think that's creepy. And finally, I have a mobile number, and I'd be nuts to give it out here. So I think it's helpful to have an agenda for a technical presentation to give everybody a sort of a mental model and outline, if you were, a sort of a path, a journey forward. What are we going to do today, and how are we going to do it? So this is the agenda today. We have, of course, covered the title. And then in line with the title, we've also covered the contact information. That means that we're on to the motivation section. I think it's important for people to understand why they're here, what they're going to learn today, and to get really excited about the topic. So why don't we just dive right into that part of the agenda. So technology. Why don't we start out with a quote here, because it's so important to quote things. Wikipedia defines technology as the science of craft. And in the same paragraph, they also say the phrase cunning of hand. I'm not exactly sure what they mean by it, but I do like the phrase. Now, there's another quote that I like, which is about specifically education. Now, the reason I like it, of course, is that it's my quote. And it's that it is for the learning of stuff and things. And I think what we're doing today is talking about technology and education together, because I am here to teach you about technology. So if we put these concepts together, obviously we end up with the learning of craft stuff and cunning. And that's what I hope that you leave here today with. Now,
besides Wikipedia and me, other famous people in science and technology and business and other fields have said important things about science and technology. Bill Gates, for example, said some things. I'm not sure what they were. Carly Fiorina, amazing business person in the field, also said some things. Albert Einstein, obviously a scientist, very famous for saying lots of things. I also think we call those. Jeff Bezos, in charge of Amazon, amazing business and technology person, again, said many, many things about technology, right? And I think all of us in the room understand that Steve Jobs, of course, had probably the most to say about technology for the brief time that he was with us, along with his co-founder, Steve Wozniak, other people throughout other fields, had lots and lots of things to say about a lot of things. And I think if we think about all of these people across all of these fields and what they had to contribute and what they had more importantly to say about technology, we can get an idea about the sheer amount of stuff that's said about technology. We can start looking at that as a data set. So if we take a look at the number of quotes over time that humanity has had. Now, I want you to sort of understand the mental model of the graph. This is population starting, at some time in the past at 0, and then growing, and there's population growth, and then eventually there's growth in terms of the number of famous quotes that humanity has come out with. And I think there's a couple of interesting inflection points to look at on the curve. First of all, you can notice that we just started out with 0. Nobody was saying really anything of merit until at some point in the past we came up with a concept of what I'll call language. And it turns out that language is instrumental to not only being able to understand the quotes, but to actually use the words to say the quotes to begin with. The second inflection point where things got a little bit steeper there, very interesting, was when we came out with the printing press. Because it turns out that you can say as much as you want, but people won't remember it unless you write it down. So that was huge. But then the real big inflection point, I call this the hockey stick, kind of because it goes steeper and also because it kind of hits you in the face. And that's when Twitter came. And this is when all of humanity was able to say so much more and then just retweet it out there. All of a sudden people are being quoted all the time simply because of Twitter. Now, if you overlay this with another interesting data set, you can see that not only were people saying more and more and more about technology, but they were saying it with fewer and fewer words. And you can also overlay one other piece of technology, one other piece of data into the graph and realize that not only is population going up and the number of quotes going up and the number of words going down, but along with that, not coincidentally, the amount of technology was growing. Right? If you want to take notes, this would be the time. So technology, that's what this talk is about. And if we want to take another look at this data, if we want a different perspective on it, what we can do is we can pop it into 3D. This one speaks to me. I find the data just pops here. So moving on, I'm going to leave you with another technology quote here, and that is that technology has enabled more people to say less about more since there were less of us to say less about. Now this is a quote from me, of course, so you can go ahead and quote me as long as you actually attribute that. That's in the contract, the speaker's contract. I'll have you sign something before you leave too. Okay, so let's move back to the agenda and let's see where we're at. So we moved through the title and the contact information. I think we've sufficiently covered the motivation section. Now I'd like to give you a feeling of why you're in the room. I think this is really good when conferences encourage the speakers to have an about the speaker section, because otherwise you just don't know the context. Like, why is this person an expert to speak on this topic? You may not know me. You may not know my background in the field. And so I want to give you a feeling of comfort that you chose the right room to learn the wrong information. So first of all, my name is Chet Haase. I think that's pretty clear. Hopefully, if you were paying attention to the quotes. I am, of course, an expert in process methodology. I'm also a technologist, and I am a technology speaker. I'm also a technology writerist, and am known for a couple of important articles in the academic community on the topic, the process of technology. and the technology of process. These articles are not actually published yet. They're still on my laptop, but I do intend to push them out there eventually if I can figure out how to do that onto a website. I want to tell you a little bit also about the company or the companies that I've run. So of course there's the Process Methodology Specialist Company, or PMS. This morphed recently when there were more opportunities to be paid for speaking engagements. So we started the company Process Methodology Speakers, fortunately with the same acronym, which was very fortunate because I printed up so many business cards. Recently we also started a new company as a sibling to these other companies called the Process Speakers Specializers on Technology. This one was actually just formed last week, just prior to doing this talk. I thought that would sort of help with my credibility. I think you'll agree that really helps here. Some of the services that we provide in this collection of companies include the following. And then, of course, we also do catering. I'd like to give you a little better feel about my background in the industry so that you know that what I'm talking about is what I'm saying. So in my current company, of course, I hold all these executive positions. In the former company, similar thing, a lot of positions in there. I was doing pretty much everything in this company. There is a famous consulting company that I worked at, but due to the legal restrictions, when I left their firm, they won't allow me to publish their name, but I was there during some period up to 2012, and then I won't go into the circumstances why I left either. I do know people in the military. And then finally, I work at Starbucks to cover the bills. I do have an education in exactly the kinds of stuff that we're talking about here today. I do have an advanced degree in technology terminology way back in 2015. I have a certificate, this was huge, certificate of process in 2012, paired with the advanced certificate of process with methodological application. And I want everyone to try to say that word for the first time correctly. It is tricky. You really need the advanced certificate in order to accomplish it. I have a degree in natural language speaking and also an online degree in receiving online. I did pursue a BS in BS at City College. I did not end up with a degree, but I did actually go to some classes. I think that's important to point out. I do have some outside interests because don't all of us. I do like technology. Technology is really fun, isn't it? And I like process. And I think like a lot of us in this room, I like to play with rare molds. I've had some important presentations, much like this one is very significant today. In the field of process, of course, I've talked about crystal methodology. We've also talked about software patterns in the patterns talk, and also some software best practices for practical practice in the software practices practice. In the management field, we've had a talk about managing expectations. And then finally, in today's topic on technology, I haven't actually had any presentations yet, but what I'm hoping is that next time I give a presentation on technology, I'll be able to use this talk as a bulletin. Okay, so that was a little bit about me. I think that was very brief. If anybody has any questions about me, I'd be happy to answer those if we have time at the end. So we can go into me in more detail. I'm always happy to do that. So we're done with the about the speaker, and I'd like to really go on to the content and the data in the talk. What I refer to as the meat of the talk, the essence, or as the French might say, the raison d'etre. I actually don't know what they mean by that. Something about being in debt to the winery. They're French, they drink a lot, I don't know. I don't actually speak French because I'm American, so what's the point? I think what I would like out of this talk is if everybody can leave here with an epiphany about technology. And when I say epiphany, I know that you have no idea what I'm talking about. Because there are a lot of syllables in this word. So why don't we start out by defining what we mean by epiphany. And we're going to define it in terms of the Latin that it's derived from, of course. So let's break it down in terms of the syllables. Right? So we have E. Obviously, that's 2.7. Not coincidentally, E is also equal to MC squared. Now, the funny thing about this, I don't know how this happened. How long did Alfred work on this? Defining E in terms of MC squared, and nobody thought to tell him the answer is 2.7. Right? Like his life's work is leading up to an equation that actually had a simple answer the entire time. Poor guy. Wonder if anybody ever told him. Second syllable, of course, pi, equal to exactly 3.2. And then finally, Fanny, which I don't really think is a technical conference, so we won't go into that. Instead, we'll stick to the technical details, right? It's a technical presentation. All right, so let's talk about a little bit more data. Let's take a look at population growth over time. So I want you to notice a few things about this graph. One is that if we look at the right side of the graph where it says now, that indicates now. Whereas if we go over here to the left where it says a long time ago, what I mean by that is that happened a really long time ago. Right? Very important concepts here. And what this is saying is that the population has grown from just about 0 up to a lot more now. Right? Okay, it's a big concept, just work with it a little bit. And the other thing I want you to understand from this graph is these are a lot of zeros. Really, really big numbers. They're so big that they actually don't even fit on the slide. They just slid right out there to the left. And what this tells me is that this is a really large population. Okay, that's a really important concept that I want everybody to get. All right, so let's lay a little bit more data on top of this. So now we're talking about the growth of technology over time. For a long time, nothing happened in technology. I don't know what these people were doing for fun. I think they were banging rocks together. I don't know what else they had to do back there before there was technology. But then eventually, finally, at that first inflection point, we have the Industrial Revolution. So now we have some machines, we have some things happening. But you see the slope of the curve is still kind of low, right? Not a lot going on because all they are is machines. All the fun they had was probably like the hoop stick game, right? There's not a lot you can do back in those days before there was real technology to play with. And then we had computers come online, and all of a sudden, the rate of technology is so much faster. Now, if we take a look at another piece of data, if we overlay a factor that I refer to as fun, you can see that the fun factor increased dramatically once computers came online. And in fact, fun got even more increasing. They increased even greater. It was greatly more increasing. It got a lot bigger than any of the other factors in whatever units we're using here, which I don't quite understand. Once we got to computers, but more importantly, once we got to mobile phones, right? So computers gave us the ability to ignore the humanity around us. Mobile phones gave us the ability to ignore everyone and play with that virtual reality in our pockets, right? So now we can ignore everyone while we're playing with our pockets. Moving on. I want to talk about computers. Now, I think everybody is familiar with the access that we have to personal computers, like this one. These are fantastic machines. We've got a wide variety in there. We have this one. We also have this one. Now, if you take a look at some of the attributes that make computers so fantastic, you've got large storage capacity. Not only that, but you have these RAID arrays. So you've got redundant backup. If this right one fails, we got your back data. You've got a flat screen, at least it looks flat to me here on the picture. You've got natural language processing here. You can type anything you want on this keyboard. Very amazing. Meanwhile, we move into the mobile phone space where the rate of advance is so huge all the time. There's such variety there, starting out with. So you can tell, I mean, it's really subtle, but this phone is not plugged into the wall, right? It's mobile. We can take this thing anywhere we want. And it's got so many features that are so useful. First of all, it's got a speaker and a microphone. Right? So you can hear and you can speak to people. This is an app that just comes bundled on this device. All you need is a stylus device, and you can write right in that little space. Right? Very convenient. You can, this is what I call the flexible usage perimeter, or the FUP. You can walk around anywhere you want within the perimeter that cord allows you. And then finally, you have a nice touchscreen display where to dial a number, all you do is touch the buttons. Now, I don't actually know why we call it dialing anymore at this point. It just doesn't make any sense. Maybe someone should come up with an app where you actually need to do that, because I'm pushing these buttons. Maybe we should just, I'm not dialing my mom, I'm pushing my mom. Okay, so we've got other options out there. This one is a beautiful one. You've got a sleek design with nice hard edges and some supple curves in there as well. Got long range reception. You don't have that cord anymore. You can walk anywhere in that room that you want to. And greater input flexibility. You'll notice it's not only the numeric keypad, but a bunch of random buttons. I don't even know what these things do. I think the red one calls a fire engine. That would be a useful app. So moving on to another one, the thing I love most about this one is the massive storage capacity just built directly into the phone, and the integrated apps here. I think that this is an abacus, or maybe a slide rule. I think that's very cool, very innovative. Right? And then also, familiar communication paradigms. When people pick this up, they usually know what to do with it. Fantastic. This one is great. It's a mobile phone in the shape and beauty of a banana. It's fantastic. This one, look at that keyboard. Again, you can type anything you want here. It's taking all that technology and design, wonderful, sleek design from the PC space, and it's bringing into phones, right? So you can do any kind of data entry and input you want in there in your natural language system. And you have this widescreen display technology. So if you want to experience movies and media content the same way you do in a movie theater, all you need to do is bring it right up to your eye. It's fantastic. All you're missing is the person behind you chewing popcorn with an open mouth. It's like you're there. This one is fantastic. My favorite part about this is that you have two-handed operation, right? So your whole body can get into using this thing. It's great. You have a nice large speaker so you can hear the person on the other side. You have all kinds of colors happening in this UI. It's very exciting. Bright display technology, you can actually use it as a nightlight walking around your house. And also, look at all the buttons. All the ways to input data in there. And in addition to the buttons, we also have asterisk and pound sign. Now this one, you can automatically tweet stuff, right? You can do hash codes as long as they're numbers. And then the asterisk we don't have a use for yet, but we will. We will. And all of this, I want you to understand, all of this is due to technology. So I'm going to throw another quote at you here, because I like to. And I'm going to say that, you know what, technology is fun, right? But you know what is better? More technology is fun. And again, you can quote me on that. And I want to back this up with data. And I want to show this graph again. We've seen this before, but the point you were missing here is that you are here. You're at the top part of that curve. Where do we go from here? Right? Okay, so here we are in the agenda. We've done content and data. I think you'll agree there was a lot of meat, a lot of essence, a lot of raison d'etre there. And I think it's time to go on to the call to action. I think this is the most important part of any technical presentation I'm ever part of, is to call out to the audience and say, now, here's what I want you to do. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go out and do things with technology. Now, moving on in the agenda. We've had the call to action, which means that we're right into the Q&A section. And I'm happy to entertain questions about me, about my backgrounds, I guess about technology, process, anything you want to ask, I'm happy to give you the correct answers. Yes? What is the most fun technology? Well, I think the data spoke clearly to the fact that it's mobile phones, right? I mean, just the fact that not only can I ignore all of you looking at my computer, but I don't even need to look down at a desk. I can just look at my pocket. What's the most fun mobile phone? My favorite out of that particular collection was the two-handed model. It's very interactive, right? You really you physically get into it. It's like a little puzzle. It's like a little Rubik's Cube of how do I open my phone? Fantastic. Thank you for the question. Excellent. Yes?
We all know how Albert Einstein figured out E equals MC squared.
Albert.
But who figured out pi?
Who?
3.2?
Yeah, 3.2?
Yes.
Her name was Smith. Look it up.
Was that one of the Intel processors that did that?
That figured out pi?
Yeah.
It was their first processor. It could only calculate numbers to 2 digits. Yes?
Would having more phones on hand increase fun?
More phones on hand, like per hand? One phone
Like,
per
how
hand?
many phones should I have at all times? To have more fun, maximize fun.
The more you have, the more fun you have. Right? So I think it's pretty clear from the data that the more technology there is, the more fun you're having.
So what we really need is more pockets.
Excellent. Do you have a resume? I'm thinking cargo pants are the fun person of the future. Yes?
Would you like an additional phone?
An additional, you mean the one that does addition? I've got the one that has the slide rule, but I haven't figured that out yet.
No, just a phone that doesn't have any features.
Features. You mean like all the fancy features we saw there? I really like my features, the note taking app, all that stuff.
I got one for you.
Okay.
No camera, no buttons, no phone calls.
No appreciate it. What's the amount of technology in here?
There is no technology.
No technology. All right, thanks very much. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So obviously you've worked a lot with process methodology and so forth. So what are some like great emerging trends you see in that space?
One of my favorite certainly is the process of working with a partner on your code. Sometimes referred to as pair programming, but I actually prefer the version that's O-pair programming. If you've ever noticed two engineers looking at the same part of the code, if one person is typing, the other person is constantly going. You can't even stand to watch anybody else drive the mouse. They're going so slowly, right? Wouldn't it be better if one person was always in the code, always doing the typing, and the other person was just kind of straightening up the office? The kids are screaming somewhere, they're taking care of the kids, they're making dinner because you didn't get around to it, whatever.
Oh.
But then that allows that one person to drive the computer and the other person to drive the life. Very efficient. Yeah, thank you. Someone else had a question?
Well,
Yes.
I was going to say, do you think that if more technology and more phones increases the level of fun, and you really liked the two-handed version of that phone, do you think it would be beneficial to the evolution of our species to develop more hands? And if so, how will that reflect in our abundance of cat videos?
Okay, there were a lot of words in there, and one of those words had a lot of syllables. There's also a couple of questions, which is one beyond quota. I do think that more hands would help, because then you could simply hold more phones, and more phones equals more technology, which equals more fun. Absolutely. And I forgot your second question because I only had a buffer of one.
I did too, so
Okay.
that's fine.
Cat videos.
Cat
There's some,
videos.
yeah.
Oh,
Cat
yes,
video is
cat
great.
videos.
Yeah. You know why? Because it dominates your attention. And if I got something playing on my screen, I don't have to look at all these people. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I had a friend who wanted to get into
process.
Is this like a hypothetical that you have? That's a pretend world where the engineer has a friend.
And my friend wants to get into process methodology.
Okay.
How do they do that?
So the best part about process methodology, it's in the overall space of management consultancy. Right? So what you need to do to become a management consultant is to say, I am a management consultant. That's certainly how I got into it. And then step 2 is you give a talk at a conference. So I would encourage them to join the field, except that I really can't stand the competition, so no thank you. Yes?
Should there be dedicated bathroom phones?
Dedicated bathroom phones.
More fun.
I'm thinking like, how would you perform a data wipe? I don't know. It could be a little messy in there. You're not sure if you have technology in what could be a public space or could be like an IP leak. We'll have to consider this. Yes.
When's your book coming out?
The book on which part of this?
Process methodology.
You know what? The only thing I have to do first is to write it. And I've heard people say that that's really the easiest part of writing. So, yeah, very soon now. Yes?
The yellow part, the fun part of your graph, at the end of the graph,
Yes, it
what
does.
happens when it goes off the graph?
Excellent question. Right. I think we're going to have to go on to a separate slide to the right so that we can. So the part down at the bottom, one of the technical details of that chart and the data overall to understand is that the line at the bottom is what we in the field call the x-axis. Yeah, I know. We use variables to confuse real people. So the x-axis happened to stop at the top part of the fund where we are now. Now, if the fund carried on to the right, if it bent around to the left, I don't know what to do with that. Let's assume it went off to the right. We would need to actually extend the x-axis, if you're following me. And then we can just pull that out, but we might need another slide to the right, which means that we would need a second laptop and then a second projector. And then I think we're safe. Yeah. Yes?
I think we're all still processing just the breadth of your intelligence in the processing division field. And I was just wondering if you have any experience in food processing.
Yeah, food processing talk. The process of food processing is fascinating. The processing of food itself, not so much. No, but the process and methodology of how you process that food, absolutely. Yeah. I'll definitely do that if someone pays me for it.
Especially it's moldy.
Sorry?
Especially it's moldy. The food processing. You like real
Oh,
Strange molds.
yes, yeah, the post-process. Post-process, food processing. Then I'm interested. Yes, sir.
So we've had computers and lately mobile phones. What do you think the next big thing is that's going to come along to make our fun more funner and faster?
Obviously, more mobile phones. Looking into the back, I mean, if we go back and look at some of this data, which I would do if I knew how to use this, we can see, given the historical data, that there have been these inflection points in history. We had the inflection point of the Industrial Revolution, the printing press, Twitter, computers, phones. So obviously, there's nothing in the future because I think we've invented everything. That's a huge collection of stuff. I don't think we can say. Yeah, great question. Sort of ignorant, but you're new to the field. Everyone's new to the field, and I've been dealing with it for a week. So it looks like the questions are winding down. Yes.
Do technology wearables have a higher density of fun? And if so, should I attach as many to my body as possible?
So the trick with wearable technology is that we don't actually know where it is. That is the whole point. In fact, car keys have been wearable technology for decades. So it's a little hard to attach it to your body if you simply don't know where to find it. It's an unsolved problem. So returning to the agenda, we can see that we've finished with the Q&A, and that's it. Thank you.